Chapter 5, not only were they receiving this opposition from outside forces, but problems now arise within their own community. There's a food shortage, and working on this wall hindered them from tending to their crops, so a famine occurred. The crops that did grow produced little, and those who had grain were selling it at a high price that some had to mortgage their fields and homes just to purchase food. Some had to borrow money, but were charged excessive interest rates. So it's like the rich got richer and the poor got poorer. They're facing opposition from outside forces and now from within their own community. Jewish people taking advantage of one another. And in verses 6 through 7, Nehemiah was very angry. Now this is a righteous anger. And he told the nobles and officials, "You are charging your own people interest. Yes, money could be loaned, but not to gain interest from another person's distress. What you are doing is not right," he says in verse 9. Nehemiah rebukes their failure to treat others with compassion, rebuking them for their greed and profiting from those who were clearly in need. Verse 9 is a valuable lesson. He says, "Shouldn't you walk in the fear of our God to avoid the reproach of our Gentile enemies?" Failure to treat others, especially fellow believers, with compassion is an insult to God and honestly is a blot to our testimony. And this is so relevant today because Christians often fight with other Christians. I just don't understand it. I was watching this interview with Kat Von D. Kat Von D is a famous tattoo artist who got baptized. She gave her life to Christ, and the most criticism she received was from Christians. They accused her of faking it for publicity. What do you think that says to the watching world, to unbelievers? So guys, be careful of how you treat others, especially your fellow brothers and sisters in Christ. It really calls into question the character of God. It causes unbelievers to blaspheme God. Anyway, I'm going to read verse 10. "And likewise I, my brothers, and my servants are lending them money and grain. Please let us leave off this usury." Interest for profit was not to be charged at the expense of the poor. Verses 11 through 13, he urges them to give them back their fields, their vineyards, their houses. Give back what you have taken from them. And they agree to this, and Nehemiah calls for them to take an oath. Verses 14 through 15, Nehemiah served as a governor for 12 years, but he didn't take advantage of his position. He didn't oppress the people. Nehemiah leads by example. He will not do what former governors did. He's paving the path for future leaders. And in verse 16, he didn't purchase any land. He was just there to work on the wall. He wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty. He never lost sight of what God was calling him to do. He was in a position of power and could have easily abused his power, but he had reverence for God, and that kept him from placing burdens on his people. Verses 17 through 19, he gave his portion when he didn't have to. He set aside his right to the governor's food allowance and bore those costs out of his own pocket. So this is just a great lesson on who we serve. When we serve God, we minister to his people with love and compassion. At first, Jews weren't ministering to their own people, and Nehemiah rebuked them because that is not the character of God. Nehemiah set a personal example of godliness. This is not to boast, but to be a reflection of who he truly serves, the Lord. He displayed generosity. He displayed sacrifice. He displayed relief of burdens, and above all, he displayed service. This is the true character of God. It's not oppressive and it's not without compassion.